So we were in the Third Republic of France. Just a little side note for you with the French. So we've had 50 constitutions. The French Republic is now in its 5th republic, so they've had a few less republics. So just to let you kind of know, this is our 3rd, so there'll be 2 after, because the French are going to change things up. So what's happening with the Third French Republic? I left off in my video lecture that they have been trying to build some support, that they have been trying to, ease in, hoping that no one will rise up against them. And so we're going to have what is known as the Bullinger crisis. Georges Bullinger, who is the Minister of War. Oh, I think you left yours on this place.
Okay.
We're going to have the Minister of War is going to, imagine this, being the Minister of War, be able to gain support of the military. Side note here for all you gentlemen or women who have facial hair envy, like look at those great mustaches up there. He lets them wear beards again in the military, so he gets the military's favor. I guess that's enough to persuade them. And he wants revenge against Germany. Remember Bullinger, and this is where I think I said my quote from yesterday, stereotypes make lectures go more quickly. So French don't like Germans. Okay, so there's my stereotype that's going to make things go quickly. Not that every Frenchman hates every German, but the French in general do not like Germany. They're not happy with the reparations, after the Franco-Prussian War. And so they're also going to want Alsace-Lorraine back. So Georges Bullinger is going to start planning a coup. Actually, while he's planning this coup, he's like, well, maybe I'll just go ahead and run. I'll run for a position. He loses, and so what do you do if you lose fairly? You start to plan how you can unfairly take hold. So he starts to plan a coup, but pretty quickly he's given away, and the Republic summons Bullinger to trial for treason, and he very quickly loses his nerve. He did not have a steel stomach. He loses his nerve and flees to Belgium, where he flees to a graveyard and goes to the gravesite of his former mistress and commits suicide on her grave instead of facing the trial in France. So, unique story here. And you think, well, Bullinger, why are we even talking about that? That is lame, as First Hour would put it yesterday. They're like, why are we even talking about him? Why we're talking about him is because Bullinger's fall, after he had the military on his side. He could have taken out the Third Republic, the new government. But the Republic sees this as a victory. Ooh, we withstood Bullinger. Yeah, that guy, not so much guts and glory. But so they see it as a victory, the Third Republic, and it's going to see an increase in public satisfaction with the Third Republic. This guy goes and kills himself on his mistress's grave. But anyway, where did they? I'm not sure what graveyard they ended up burying him at. But he killed himself on his mistress's grave, which means it was not his actual spouse. So I don't think they would have buried him there. So you can kind of call the Bullinger crisis the birth certificate of the Republic. It proves that the Republic is a little bit stronger than some previous governments we've seen because it withstands this tyranny and so forth. But very quickly afterwards, we're going to have a scandal which is going to discredit the Third Republic. We just can't seem to stick with the government too smoothly in France. So we're going to have the Panama Scandal of 1892. And this is going to start to destroy the credibility of the Third Republic. What canal did we just see built? The Suez Canal. What kind of geography was the Suez Canal built in?
In a strait.
In a strait, okay. Egypt, so yeah, desertous, right? So they're going to think, what's our next big wish? Well, we want to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. And so they are going to try to build the Panama Canal. Same planner for the French that we had in the Suez Canal. We are going to see Ferdinand de Lesseps, I think is how you pronounce his last name. And he is going to plan. And they are going to tax the crap out of the French citizens. Because it's going to cost a lot of money to build the Panama Canal. And so it costs the French taxpayers millions of dollars. Problem here, Panama is mountainous. It is not desertous like where the Suez in Egypt, where the Suez Canal was built. The technology is not caught up to the task of creating the Panama Canal. It's just not there yet. Also, what do you have to worry about in countries like Panama? Lowland, water, malaria, mosquitoes. They were not prepared for the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes were very quickly killing the people, a massive population of mosquitoes. And so it does not happen. The Panama Canal doesn't happen. And what the French people think is that the Third Republic was just out to get them, that it was corrupt, that it stole their money and didn't accomplish anything. And so this puts a bad taste in people's mouth about the Third Republic. Does anybody know who ends up building the Panama Canal?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay. And yes. So we are going to see the Panama Canal built under us. Does anybody know when we actually gave the Panama Canal fully back to Panama?
1977.
77 partially. 1999. Yeah. So long time. So Panama Canal unsuccessful for the French, puts a ding in the Third Republic. Okay, so now we can't have a period of history without talking about some kind of problem with the Jew, right? Like somebody in Europe having a problem, anti-Semitism. So here's our anti-Semitism here. This is the most, you want to highlight or circle, this is the most serious threat to the Third French Republic is this Dreyfus affair. Okay, I wrote it there, it's underlined, but just to draw your attention to it. So 1894, we have a French Jew who is a captain. His name is Alfred Dreyfus, and he is going to be falsely, and I spoiler alert here, falsely charged with treason, with supplying secrets to the Germans. Do French, for the sake of our time, like Germans? No. Okay, stereotypes make lectures go more quickly. So, he is going to be falsely accused. What happens is there's these secrets going missing from the French military, and they're going to find this handwritten note that looks like it may be Dreyfus's handwriting. I mean, like, however accurate that would be at this point, you know. And so they find it in this German officer's wastebasket. And so he is going to be charged with selling or giving secrets to Germans. Why him? Well, he is a Jewish captain, and we are going to see with this push of nationalism that we get a lot of xenophobia. Does anybody know what the word xenophobia means? Fear of foreigners, okay? Fear of foreigners and anti-Semitism, dislike or hatred of Jewish populace. Okay, so what? Some xenophobia, yeah, like with, yeah. I mean, you could say that it's happened all over. It happened in waves during immigration. We're going to see today with the Irish question that we generally had a dislike of the Irish, and so we treated them very poorly when they get. So, yeah, the fear of foreigners, when nationalism builds, you start to be fearful of outside influences. And so Dreyfus is accused of supplying secrets to the Germans. And it is very circumstantial evidence. Like, it does not take much work to see that he has been set up to look guilty, okay? But he is found guilty. He is given the punishment of life in solitary on an island called Devil's Island. Like, he did not get a cute little island named like Napoleon. He gets Devil's Island. It's off of South America, and he is supposed to spend life in solitary confinement on this island, okay? Little side note here for you. While he's away falsely accused, his only granddaughter dies. So that's like super sad. So anyway.
Aren't the Germans also anti-Semitic? Like some of them?
Well, yeah.
Well, everybody's
Yeah.
anti-Semitic. So.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't originated with the French, but they're going to use their new rise in nationalism and their hate for the Germans to accuse. So it stirs these things up. Okay? So this is where we're going to come back. So the press gets a hold of this, and like I said, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Dreyfus has pretty much been set up. And so Emile Zola, if you remember, he's been an answer on 2 of your exams now, our realist author is going to decide that he cannot let this happen to this innocent man. And he is going to publish a very famous newspaper article called J'accuse. And he is going to take up this case, and he is going to condemn the military of the Third Estate. Okay, he's going to condemn them. He's going to say that they are corrupt. He's going to say that they are falsely accused and knowingly falsely convicted. Dreyfus. And so he goes to accuse. He is actually going to be tried for treason for writing this. He's going to flee to England. He will come back later, however, when all of this is over, but he flees to England. And so what's going on is while Dreyfus is exiled to this island, while his granddaughter dies, while he's away, secrets are still going missing. And very often. And so he's away, very far away, and secrets still going missing, and so it becomes very obvious that he is completely innocent, and they actually end up catching 2 years later the real spy. But they don't want to try the real spy because then that republic would have to admit that they were wrong in convicting Dreyfus, okay? They'd have to admit that they were mistaken. I'm sorry? What happened was he wasn't tried. Yeah, so they just, they took away his commission. He went away. He didn't get tried. Yeah. And so the Dreyfus affair is going to become a big deal. And so we're going to have two camps kind of set up. We're going to see on the right-siders want this, they want the Dreyfus conviction to stand. Okay, they don't want to admit their fault. Okay, they think it would be bad for the Republic. We just had the Panama Affair. And then on the left side, our lefties here, which are going to be that they want Dreyfus freed. That you can't build a republic on dishonor and corruption and all of these things. And so we're going to see that the Dreyfus Affair, the leftists, like I said, are going to support the Republic, and in 1900 the case will be closed when Dreyfus was declared innocent. And so they're finally going to be able to push and say, look, we cannot let the Republic stand on this. We have to declare him innocent. We have to bring him back out of exile. But they still will not charge the spy. The other spy's have already been, decommissioned and wherever spies go that aren't charged. And so the Dreyfus Affair is actually going to lead to an alliance between moderate Republicans and socialists who both push to get this man freed. And conservatives in the military and church are going to be thoroughly discredited. And so we're going to have a shift of some of that power here. In 1905, Republicans are going to launch an anti-clerical campaign increasing separation of church and state. So, if the Bullinger case was the birth certificate of the Third Republic, the Dreyfus Affair, although it could have been very damaging, ends up being like the baptism of the Third Republic. It ends up being like this, look, we have rid the Third Republic of this corruption. They're able to focus the hatred onto the church and onto some corrupt military leaders, and this allows the Third Republic to separate church and state, which they wanted anyway. So the Bullinger case, the birth certificate, the birth of the Third Republic. This Dreyfus Affair is the baptism of it. Okay, so if you kind of think of it in those terms, I think it helps to clear it up for you. And so socialists led by Jean Jaurès are going to gain seats in the Chamber of Deputies from 1905 to 1914. And by 1914, the Third Republic will enjoy vast support of the French Republic. Okay, remember, the Third Republic, though, we're on the 5th, so something's going to happen. What do you think? Why do you think I'm stopping at 1914? World War I. Okay, I'm going to bring you in these countries all up to World War I. So, that's where we're going to stop with France. Yes, ma'am. A little over 2 years. Oh, crap. We need to all Edmodo Maddie and see if she is a descendant of Garibaldi. Okay. Right. So Great Britain is next. We've done Germany now. We've done France. Now we've taken them both up to World War I. You know me, I like to do country by a time and stop at the same point. It makes more sense in my head. I hope it makes sense in yours. So we're back in Great Britain. We still have Queen Victoria on the throne. I guess I could change my slide today. We still have Queen Victoria on the throne because she's going to be there for like forever, 1837 to 1901. Yeah, 1901. So she is there still. So just to let you know kind of who are, for once we don't have to go through like what's great about Queen Victoria, now among many things, is we don't have to go through like 500 William Fredericks, right? Like we can just say Queen Victoria is still on the throne. Because of Queen Victoria, because of the middle class values that she promoted and all of her great works. So yeah, just like the Elizabethan age. If you're a cool enough woman ruler, I guess you get a whole age. Haven't gotten there yet. So the period between 1850 and 1865 is going to see the realignment of political parties in Britain. We're going to see two major parties. We'll see a third introduced right before World War I, but we're going to be concerned about two right now. Lord Palmerston, you can read about yourself. He's not going to play a lot of significant detail, and I don't think you're going to see him on the AP exam. He was a prime minister of Britain. We're going to focus on two prime ministers today, and those are two competing prime ministers, Disraeli and Gladstone. Okay, so you can kind of read the information, but I did type it in your notes for you, but we're not going to spend time there. So, two main political parties with power are going to fight back and forth. We're going to have our conservatives and our liberals, and when I mean fight back and forth, it's kind of like a gentlemanly, like, oh, Chop, you're prime minister now. Oh, Chop, now it's your turn. Chop. Like they're not like tearing down what the other party did. When the new party, like if there was a conservative and then the liberals come in, they take what was already there and they just add a couple of their things, and when it's the next guy's turn, and then they, kind of like it is in the United States, except for recently, they don't try to undo everything the other political group do. They just add what they want, what is necessary for their party. Kind of changing here lately, but you can see the analogy I'm going for here. So our Tory party that we left off with is now going to be transformed into the Conservative Party under Benjamin Disraeli. Okay, and we're going to get into more detail about each of these, but these are your two. You need to know Disraeli and you need to know Gladstone. And I feel very confident that after we talk today you will, and it won't be an issue. Okay, so Disraeli and Gladstone are going to go back and forth a couple of times. They're going to be prime minister several times each, like gentlemanly back and forth. And so we have Disraeli up at the top there and Gladstone at the bottom. So Disraeli, conservative. I always remember like CD, conservative Disraeli, to not get them mixed up. And then you have the Whig Party is going to transform into the Liberal Party under William Gladstone. So we have conservatives and we have liberals, two parties. Under Gladstone, you'll see that I mentioned a gentleman by the name of John Bright. Just to let you know that he is going to he's going to propose this new Manchester School of Thought, which is radical liberalism or laissez-faire, and he is going to be given credit for building this liberal party. Okay, so that's where he comes in important, but not as nearly as important to us here as Gladstone. Okay, so here we go. Disraeli, after 1865, Britain saw expanded democracy under Disraeli and Gladstone, who, remember, are political opposites. Disraeli conservative, Gladstone liberal. Why do you think we have increased democracy? What would be something that would cause increased democracy?
Wasn't more suffrage? Because, like, France did it, so of course
Yeah.
we don't have to.
Very good. Yeah, France sneezed, and for once it's a good thing. And so we have increased democracy by increased suffrage. Just a side note about Disraeli. He is going to be our only Jewish ethnicity prime minister of Britain ever, still up to this point. Although he's baptized in the Church of England, he is born Jewish. So just a little side note there for you on Disraeli. So Disraeli is going to argue for aggressive foreign policy, imperialism. He's pro-imperialism. So what do you think Gladstone's going to be? Anti, okay? So you can kind of start seeing where we're shaping this up here. Expansion of the British Empire and reluctantly supported democratic reform. Circle or highlight reluctantly. He does not do things for the workers because he wants to. He does them because he wants their vote. He wants to keep his party in power. So he reluctantly does it because he is a conservative. He doesn't want to be that guy that's like, hey, I don't want rights for you. So bad, so sorry. Like, he doesn't want to look that way, and so he'll reluctantly do these things. So I think it's important that you know that. Kind of funny, he gives us a novel called Sybil, in which he writes about the struggle of the working class. And this is very surprising coming from a conservative. And his quote, and I wrote this down for you guys, the best way to become acquainted with a subject is to write a book about it. And so he's like, I don't know, I'm like this rich guy, I don't know anything about the working class, maybe I should go write a book about them, and I will learn more about them. And so kind of surprising from a conservative. He's also going to, at this time, become very influenced by a gentleman we've talked about before, John Stuart Mill. And so he reads his On Liberty, and he is going to take this work and say that increased democracy is necessary because increased democracy will provide the greatest happiness for the greatest amount of people. Okay, so he has some sympathies for the working class. He definitely doesn't want to look like he doesn't, so he first starts reluctantly, and I don't know, I think kind of along the way, he starts to believe what he's preaching. Like, he writes this book and he reads John Stuart Mill's works. I think he kind of has a little bit of a change of heart, I would say. But so this is going to give us, if you remember in England, the Chartists have been asking for all of this stuff from the 1830s to the 1840s. You know, they have their wheelbarrows full of petitions and they've been wanting all of this. And so he's going to give some answers to those Chartist movements here with the Reform Bill of 1867. And this is Disraeli's Leap in the Dark. What's it mean to leap in the dark? Yeah, to like take a risk. So he doesn't really know how this is going to work out. It's not really aligned with his political goals. He's going to take this leap with this reform. I'm not sure if it's going to crash and burn, if he's going to get hurt, if his party's going to get hurt, and that's the Reform Bill of 1867. And what he's going to do here is he's going to expand that Reform Bill we talked about in 1832 that the Chartists had pushed for. He's going to redistribute the seats and provide more equitable representation in the House of Commons. Industrial cities are going to gain seats. Not rural yet, though. You might want to make a note here. We're not opening this up to country bumpkins yet, as they would view them. Just the urban peoples. And all men over 21 who resided in urban centers in the cities are going to be granted the right to vote. And this is essentially going to double the amount of men. I think we go from 1/8 to 1/3 here. So 1/8 of the males being able to vote over the age of 21 to 1/3. So if your city still kind of property, you have to, I think, up to 10 pounds of property or rent that you're paying for where you're living is a qualification. So that's still there. But we are going to see an increase. Remember, England's like a what? Like a teapot. Yeah, we're going to let that steam off. Like, you know, not me right now, but it could be me tomorrow that they say can vote. And so people aren't going to get into the uproar that we see in other places because they're like a teapot. He's also going to reduce government regulation of trade unions, create government regulations of improved sanitation. So all these things are going to help that working class and where they live. Remember, not a revolution, but an evolution. That's England. All right, so that was our conservatives. Disraeli, conservative. Now we have to get to Gladstone, who is a liberal, okay? He is going to, this is funny to me, and it's just a side note. I don't, if they ask this on an AP exam, I'd like fall over. But he is given the nickname Good Old Man, G-O-M. And like, I think did I even put it here for you? Oh, sorry, guys. There's Disraeli. Here's his book, Civil. Disraeli, movie made about Disraeli. That like guy is just funny. I love the like one curl that he has going. Oh, Gladstone. So this is a newspaper article from when Gladstone dies, and it says G-O-M has passed away, and it means good old man. Disraeli takes it, and he decides, how convenient that you were just given this great nickname, and he is going to reterm it G-O-M, meaning God's only mistake. So this is like the worst political, you know, like, oh, I'll get you, incendiary talk, like, God's only mistake. So Disraeli kind of takes it and slanders his nickname. But talk about like putting your name through the ringer. But he's going to be our prime minister 4 times, and he's going to be our most important liberal figure in the 19th century England. So very important to England. Hence why the people gave him the nickname Grand Old Man. I don't know if he liked it so much after Disraeli got done with it, but anyway. He supported the Irish Home Rule. If you look, like, you might want to make a note here. We're going to talk about the Irish Home Rule on page 9, so I'm not going to leave it out for you, but you can kind of guess. What do you think that we're going to be talking about if we talk about Irish Home Rule? The Irish what? Sorry, I still didn't hear you.
Just, Irish, people.
Yeah, and what might Irish people want? Yeah, they might want to be ruling themselves, right? Because who's ruling them right now?
England.
Yeah, it's Great Britain. They're part of the United Kingdom since 1801. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but Gladstone is a supporter of this. He also supports the fiscal policy of free trade. There shouldn't be a comma there after fiscal policy. Like, he doesn't just support fiscal policy. Like, what government official wouldn't support a fiscal policy? It should be a semicolon. He supports the fiscal policy of free trade and extension of democratic principles, and he opposes imperialism. Okay, it's going to be important to us as we move towards World War I. And so he believes the Irish should rule themselves. That's going to be part of that, and he's anti-imperialist. So we should let Ireland rule themselves because they are Irish. He abolished compulsory taxes to the church. So he got rid of tithes. Like, you didn't have to pay tax to the church. He thinks this is fair, especially if you're not a member of that church. Why should you be paying them money? So he's going to weaken the church. He is also going to say that you had to, like, there's still, like, these requirements. You have to graduate from college to hold a seat. All of these things, and we'll get into that. One cool thing he does, one of the plus cool things he does, is he's the one who gives us a secret ballot. Because remember, in England, we'd have those rich guys that own the land you live on, so they come to your house and be like, look, guy, you have to vote this way or I'm kicking you off your land. So he's going to adapt the secret ballot from Australia so that nobody can see how you're voting. He is also going to give civil service reform in 1870. And so what that means by this is, instead of getting a job just because your uncle's that guy over there, you have to take an exam to prove that you're qualified to have that job. So civil service examination under him. We're going to see that his ideas spread to the United States with civil service exams after this, and so that's important to us. And then we're going to get the Reform Act of 1884, sometimes called the Representation of the People Act of 1884. And this is where we're going to get even more suffrage, okay? Because remember, they're like one-upping each other, like they're competitive, but they're not like erasing what the other party did. So Gladstone says, oh, DiCarelli made you happy because city people could vote. I'll make you happier because I'm going to let even more people vote. And so what he's going to do is he's going to grant suffrage to adult males in the countryside, just like he had done in the cities. But you still have to own property. You still have to at least pay a rent worth of £10 a month or own a property worth £10. But he's going to extend it to the country people. And this is going to give us 2 million agricultural voters added. So you want to write right here at the Reform Act of 1884 that now 70% of men can now vote in England in 1884. 70%. Yeah, because we've added the country folks in. Who's left are country and city people who don't own any property. And women, but we'll get to that today. Glory days. All right, and so we're going to see that this brought Britain close to universal male suffrage. Does anybody remember what year I threw out there that Britain will get universal male suffrage? I hear murmurs. It's like 1918. Thank you, Kyler. 1918 is when we are going to get universal suffrage in Britain. Who have universal suffrage now? France. Very good. You guys are rocking it today. All right. So next we need to talk about during the 1880s and 1890s. So we're going to move forward a little bit. Oh, my clicker today. This is messing me up. And so 1880s to 1890s, we're going to see new groups. So we've had how many political parties up till now? Two. And they were?
Whigs and Tories that evolved into
Conservative. Awesome. Guys are kicking it. So next we're going to get the Fabian Society. We're going to get new groups who emerge to challenge the two-party system. Kind of like if you think of today, you have Republicans and Democrats, which were our two main parties, and now you have like Tea Partiers who don't like Republican or Democrat, or you have Green Party or Libertarian Party that say don't vote for those guys, they're crazy, like join us. So we're going to get groups are seeking to expand democracy. These groups include women's suffrage advocates, anti-imperialist, socialist, and anti-nationalist. And so the first one we're going to talk about is a socialist type group called the Fabian Society. And if my history serves me correct, Fabian, they're named after a Roman general by the name of Fabius, who was very much known for like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like delaying tactics, like delaying battles and like hoping everything's going to work itself out if you just like sit back and wait. And so they named themselves the Fabian Society, and they're socialists. So you'd think if they're socialists that they would be following the arguments of whom? Marx. Okay, and Marx is still alive right here, except he dies this very year, 1883. And you'd think they'd be following Marx. Was Marx, was he like a sit back and kind of wait for things to happen kind of guy? No. He would say the workers need to do what right now? Unite and rise up, right? And throw over the bourgeoisie. And so the Fabians aren't like that. They're like, oh, class conflict isn't necessary. If we just make sure everybody can vote and we just keep trying really hard at democracy, we can get everything to happen. They're like, we can do this through voting. It's just as long as workers can vote, we can get things done. And so they're very much not Marxist. Little side note here for you guys, which I think is really sad, because how many times have you guys heard Marx or learned about Marx in your schooling career? Yeah. Yeah, so a lot. Jalen's back there a lot. 12 people, 12, I think this is an exact, overcounting, show up to his funeral. At 8, yeah. Isn't that, after everything he did, how many times you've had to learn about him? Isn't that weird?
That's like family members.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
what did you guys learn about?
I don't know. We learned about last year.
And the
Yes.
You're Marxed out?
AP US history, and AP world. And
Yep.
every other class.
That's just every other class ever created. So you may not have known though that Marx, although people, and even these people are claiming to be socialists just in different ways, you don't think anybody could have taken a Sunday afternoon out to make it to poor guy's funeral? 12 people, that's sad.
That's like your grandparents.
Yeah. So that's the Fabian group. They're not very Marxist, as you can see. They're democracy will get us there. Next, we have 1893. We have Caire Hardy, who led the Independent Labor Party. So their party's going to probably be concerned about what? The worker labor. I love how unique their names are. Fabian, though, Fabian was pretty good. That's an old school reference. I'll go with that one. They rapidly became a vocal third party. They're kind of like I said, if you didn't like liberals or you didn't like conservatives, this was the new party. Fabian kind of just were representing the working class. This is a political party that says that they want to kind of take over. They attracted trade unionists, socialists, and those who thought that conservative and liberal parties had no genuine interest in the needs of the general public. So they're going to be the ones that say, hey, I think Disraeli and Gladstone are more concerned with one-upping each other and whose party's in control than they are about you, the worker. And so they're going to challenge the conservative, and we're now going to be moving into a third-party policy pretty closely up to the start of World War I. Okay? So now we need to move into what? Sorry?
I thought my ears were
Oh.
It's the car alarm.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can see it, too. It's a way fancier car than I drive. No worries. All right. So I think it's a BMW.
we keep yours too.
Doesn't that run your battery?
Just kidding.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to it. Something hit my car the other day because there's a big dent in it now.
Oh,
I
I
hate
hate my
that.
car last week.
Yeah, they knocked my mom
Yeah,
like
we got the
sides
top.
and they're off
Like,
the whole time.
Yeah.
So is there a serial car?
Yeah. All right. That's it. We need to form a student patrol. You like the SS out there.
Do they not have cameras?
They do in some places. It's really hard to see though. If you ever reviewed a tape at Walmart or something, something happens to your car, the angles are not good. I think they just put them there to make us feel better. I'm sounding like I'm on my podcast, sounding very anti the man right now.
The car is the car is I hit very hard.
And what?
She parked over the line.
Confession on tape. My husband will be so proud. My first confession on tape. So between 1905 and early 1920s, the Liberal Party becomes more aggressive, okay? They advance more aggressive social and economic programs. I think just mainly because they are like a teapot and they're wanting to take control. And so they're seeing that the more that they can get, the more people happy, the better their party's going to do. And this is where we get the Parliament Act of 1911, which is going to be the most significant political reform during the Liberal Party rule. So you will see Parliament Act of 1911 again. This is where we're going to eliminate the powers of the House of Lords. So we've always had the House of Lords, which is a very creative name because Lords are the what kind of people? The wealthy, yeah, they're like the wealthy people. So for long standing, we've had the House of Lords, the wealthy people have been in control. And what this Parliament Act is going to do is it's going to give the House of Commons, which is probably full of what kind of people? Commoners. It is going to give them this center of national power. And one of the reasons, and I want you to write this out to the side because we've been talking about this happening for a long time, this is because now if you were in the House, you're getting paid a salary. And so, like, I couldn't afford to have been involved in government at this time because I would have to quit this job to be in the House. And so you weren't getting paid. But now that you can get a salary for being in the House of Commons, you can afford to be there without having to have another job. So this is a big deal. So even because before the House of Commons hadn't been so common. They had been still like the upper middle class, land owning. But now you could be lower class and be paid, and this would actually be a really good opportunity for you. The lifespan of Parliament is going to be reduced from 7 to 5 years, and the common people are going to begin to limit the blocking power of the House of Lords. In fact, up to this point in history, the House of Lords has now only tried to stop two things the House of Commons has done, and the House of Commons has been able to still get them done. Still push them through with their power. So that's pretty significant. So now we're going to see the foundations for social welfare state created here. So we'd already seen it. Where did it start? Social welfare? Germany. It started in Germany. And so now we're going to see it expand into Great Britain. We're also going to see it expand to the United States right here as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the foundation for a welfare state is created in this decade before World War I, and it's meant to guarantee each citizen a right of decent standard of living. This is like your safety net. This is what you call a safety net or a foundation. Like if something happens to you, if you lose your job, if you lose an arm at your job, if you get too old, if you get really sick, you're protected. Okay? I mean, you're going to have right of unions to strike and protect your rights. You're going to have the right of insurance. So instead of like you get your arm cut off at work and they just go out in the street and find a new guy and say, sorry, take your arm with you, you're now protected because you probably can't do that same job you were doing with one appendage. Unemployment insurance and old age pensions are going to come out of this. So we'll see all of that. Compulsory school attendance means that you are forced to go to school, and it's state school. And they're wanting this because everybody's getting to vote now pretty much, 70%. So you want them to be educated. Okay, we've talked about this before. They don't want you to be an uneducated voter. And then who's going to have to pay for all this? The welfare state.
The taxpayers?
The taxpayers, the wealthy taxpayers especially. So we're going to see taxes increased on the wealthy to help fund the welfare state. Just a side note here, if you'd like to write out there, England and Great Britain, or Great Britain and Germany, that's what the G word is supposed to say, we're about 50 years ahead of the United States in social welfare, and they're hitting a lot of problems right now because of that. I mean, what's scary is we're very closely catching up with those problems caused by social welfare. People are living longer. And so if the retirement age isn't moved, you're paying for people longer. Also, and they've gone a little bit further. I think now under the social welfare state in Europe, you get 6 weeks paid vacation. If you're going to college, the nation pays for your college. And so there's been a lot of riots. There's been a lot of riots lately because they were going to increase the retirement age by 6 months. So they rioted over that. They told the kids going to Oxford that they were going to have to pay, at least part of their tuition, and the students. This was about the time of Kate and William's wedding, and so they barricades and like disrupt the procession of the cars. And so it's causing, because it's very expensive. People are living longer and supporting people in retirement and through college. And unfortunately, we're facing some of the same problems with how is this going to, work out. There won't be, where's the social, is it going to be there? And so just, a little note of where it started and kind of some more current events for you. And so then we get the representation of the People Act of 1918. And what year? What happened in 1918, Kyler? That you told us? What? Universal suffrage. Very good. Thank you for being there again. 1918, we get the representation of the People Act, which is going to grant us universal suffrage for men. Not women yet. We'll get to that in a minute. For all men, and then all men gain suffrage, but women over 30 are going to gain suffrage at the time, but we need to talk. We haven't gotten there yet. Women over 30, I think it takes us 9 more years to be ready to vote, the men. So when we get it, it'll be age 30.
And your husband will be dead,
Yeah. And all kinds of other craziness. And that brings up a good point. Like, what does age mean? Because it was the 1970s that they dropped trying to think. They moved the drinking age up to 21 from 18. Anyway, there's this whole argument going on right now that they should drop the drinking age back down to 18 since you can join the military there, and that they should drop the adult, like being a citizen age, down to 16. Yeah, I know. Like, I'm like, no, not such a good idea.
Maybe like the citizens thing.
Yeah,
Maybe the citizens thing with the drinking at 18. I think so.
Yeah. I think that there's a reason for, it's a very hot topics out there. Like, I was doing some research for this, and I was like, I didn't realize that it had been like that recently that the age had changed. I knew it had been like within this decade, within the century.
Or we could just be like Britain and have kids drinking at like 14.
Well, they don't really have
That's all
yeah,
right.
yeah. It just isn't taboo, and they're not running off into fields and overindulging and getting themselves in trouble because it's not taboo. Like, I don't know. I think that American teenagers get off on the whole. Like, I'm doing something bad thing, or like, go catch me doing this, and like kids in Europe are strolling around going, yeah, you're kind of a weirdo. Like, I don't know why you care. This doesn't look cool. Like, go home with yourself. So I don't know.
I feel like you can drop the age down. They just be more problems.
Yeah. I don't know. I see both sides of the story. I'm interested to see how this plays out. My sophomores even, they're like, I shouldn't be voting at 16. I'm like, maybe we need to do a little bit better with the education process then. Like, I don't know. So here's where we get to ladies, my over 50% of the class in here. Women's rights and suffrage movement in England. And I will remember to change this for you. So initially, women are going to address the suffrage movement not so much as a suffrage movement, but as though, like, I should get the same rights in a divorce. I should get the same legal rights in a marriage. It's going to be about fairness and justice of laws, not so much about voting. But it's not working, and so they very quickly realized, just like the men did, that the only way to get things done is through democracy and to be able to vote. And so they start to fight for their vote. So by the 1890s, women's rights activists are going to realize suffrage was the key to remedying other problems. They're going to argue that men had not done enough to protect women from exploitation and abuse, and that only women voters can do that. Many believe that the female influence in public affairs would serve as a balance. And these women are going to be called suffragettes. Like, I always wanted a shirt that said I'm a suffragette. Like a rocket, like a suffragette. Yeah. Yep. Were you at the first assembly? I heard about that one. Because the people always run to me when it's like an AP thing. But I was in the second one, the Zeb, the tie-breaking, I've never seen it ever be tied. Or going into final. Yeah. And then they had to go to the final question. So it was pretty fun to watch. So it's suffragettes is what the women are called. They're mainly from the middle class. Why do you think it's mainly middle class women?
They have time on their hands.
They totally have time on their hands. What are the working class women doing? They're working, okay? So the middle class woman who's complaining about having to stay home all day now has a college, she can like paint posters go march and things like that. So it's mainly middle class women, and they believe that it's time to worry about this. Okay, men aren't getting it done. We're not getting it done through trying to get equality and laws. And so this is where we're going to get a couple significant women. This is Millicent Garrett Fawcett. She is in charge of or leader of the National Union of Women's Suffrage Societies, or the NUWSS, and she is going to Parliament demanding women's right to vote, but she is a very peaceful woman. She is there having meetings and meetings and meetings and making posters and signs and very peaceful. And it's not working, okay? Like the men are still like, oh yeah, little ladies, it's a, you know, just drink some more tea and make your little signs. And so it's, she'll actually be knighted in 1924 after all of this comes, because she was very peaceful and, you know, she kind of spurred the movement. But the more memorable are going to be our militant suffragettes, are ones that are like, yeah, militant. Like, I will jump in there and kick your butt if you don't give me the right to vote.
Like a woman's face.
Yeah, she is like, what's up? Yeah, don't mess with me. And like every other picture, she's being escorted by cops. Like, I think that's awesome. Oh, I'm going to tell you in a video. Just a second. So, Emmeline Pankhurst was infuriated that Parliament would not listen to women, like through peaceful means. And even though women in Finland had gained the right to vote in 1906 and in Norway 1913, they're still not budging at all in Great Britain. And so with her daughter, Pankhurst is going to found Women's Social and Political Union, or the WSPU, based on militant principles. So they're going to start to violently, in 1907, destroy railroad stations, works of art and store windows, chaining themselves to gates in front of Parliament. Yeah, they're going to make themselves known. They're going to organize parades and demonstrations. Some men who disapproved are actually going to attack the female marchers as well, at which she tells the women to do whatever they need to back to the men. You can imagine what she told them to go after to combat back. A number of them are going to be arrested and jailed for their activities, and in jail they'll like mount hunger strikes.
I wonder, like, what their husbands thought. Like, well, I'm not working. You're standing.
Yeah, a lot of these were older middle class women that hadn't been married yet, but those who were married had probably very liberal husbands. Yeah, they might have seen the gain of having their wives vote.
Were the working class women cheering them on?
Yeah, I think for sure the working class women, but I think the working class women knew even if it happened for middle class women, it'd be like the men, and there'd be like if you had this with your husband or you had this much property. And so I think they're like, this could be good, but they're like, oh, teapot, let them, and they might, it's not us today, but it could be us tomorrow, you know, like they're upper class women, yeah, but they would have probably not been in the station to want to put their name out there while this is all going on. Middle class women have a little more like, like get out.
The upper class are just kind of like
Yeah, cut funding with, you know, their allowance, yeah. So they're arrested. A lot of these pictures are of that, and they'll like wage hunger strikes while they're in jail, and the men will like actually force feed them. I mean, because that was unheard of. It's like let a woman like wither away and die.
There was like a movie about
Yeah. Yeah. Hunger strikes, jail, they're force-fed by authorities. When the public was outraged at these force-feeding, parliaments passed the Cat and Mouse Act that freed starving female prisoners from jail until they had regained their health. So like they go out for a big dinner and then they were put back in jail. Most of them didn't, you know, they were only, yeah. But perhaps the most militant and most remembered woman is going to be Emily Davidson, and she is going to actually commit suicide. Although the suicide part's questionable, because she had bought round trip tickets to this race. This is a race, and she is going to throw herself in front of the king's horse, who is racing, like full speed racing. And I don't know if she was like, if it was like a last minute thing to do, like she was just there to cause a scene, because she bought round trip tickets. She was supposed to speak at another women's suffrage movement. And so I don't know. We don't know what's going through her head. But I have a video of this.
You gonna show us?
Yes?
Yes. That is some real. She is a bad woman.
come the horses. Okay, that's the first. It's gonna highlight it for you. It's really quick.
Yeah, highlight it. Whoa.
It's gonna show you where she is. Oh, why won't it let
Who
me?
does that? That's like running out of traffic
Okay,
on the highway.
It looks like jumping from the president's motorcade.
here comes the
This is
horses.
flat.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah,
Took her out.
yeah. And this
So
one
black?
should pull it up. I don't.
Why?
Okay, now it's gonna highlight her.
Now, how did she jump out like that?
She just steps out.
Oh.
She just steps out from under the gate.
Wow.
And she, but I mean, she had to be thinking she was gonna do it because she timed it right before the king's horse. It was like in front, and then like in front of.
Maybe she's like, I'm a bother
Yeah.
around tickets of everyone think I'm going on.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was just so in the moment. She's like,
Moment.
no, I'm gonna show this. She's like, oh dang, I have
Yeah,
to
she
escape.
told
Like,
the
yeah.
keys
Did
were
it kill
done.
her like instantly or?
Yeah, I mean, she did.
She died.
She's dead.
What about the
Come on now.
horse?
The horse, I don't know. I never. I
No,
think I
that's
can't
all
stand it when animals get hurt, so I didn't. I bothered to see what happened to her. I didn't bother to see what
Yeah,
happened.
that's what I'm like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though if it had an injured leg,
Did
you
she
know what
like,
happened to
did
her.
she
at
like
that time.
jump over the fence or did she just like?
She just like ducked under. See the fence right here? She just like, you know, they're just right under it.
Is
Yeah.
that the horse on the ground?
Yeah, that's her body and then the horse. And then the horse that was behind. So,
I don't know that horse was in pain.
that's her. There's the horse. There's the horse's rider. Right there. She's
The
on
horse's
white
rider is probably just as
Was the
hurt.
horse's rider okay?
I think he was fine. He was like, I think had some substantial injuries. But
Probably
he,
from
remember,
the horse
he just
behind him more than
he just fell off his horse. So I mean, that's a pretty far drop. But I think the horses that actually see, they're going over her. Like, so that's what.
Triple.
So that's Emily Davison. What? Oh, they were watching the race. Yeah, this was a pretty. I mean, this was like wow. Like you really want to vote.
So what did it say after she did it?
She
Like,
wanted
did
to
they
bring.
stop the race?
She wanted to bring notability to the women's suffrage movement. Is why she
So
said
she was
what she
like
did.
a murderer.
Yeah, she's like a martyr for the cause. Yeah, they had to stop
But
it. It's
how
like
does
Like, that's not
running
fair.
yourself a horse race do that?
I mean, I guess because we're talking about it now. I mean, like it was a huge deal. Like women
Yeah,
just
like,
didn't
it's
like
a
that.
big
Women
deal.
did not do things like that. And women, remember, were seen as very like Gentile. Like a woman is lost, and so it brought notability. It made other women think, "Am I doing enough for the suffrage movement?" And she would like throw herself in front of the king's horse. And
She
so
didn't throw herself. She literally stood there.
yeah,
She's seen that.
it was so
coming.
graceful. It was just like, and here I am.
Yeah, and,
My PowerPoint came back.
They
Yeah.
try to like shift.
Can you imagine?
So graceful and all dressed up.
Okay. Oh. Would you like to stand safely with me over here? Or we have a discussion from a representative, a brave representative from Block 1.
Oh, let's go go down.
Should I stop the recording? I'm not going to get in trouble for any of this, right?
It's on tape.
I didn't realize you were recording.